Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining our Signworld Public webinar today. My name is Jeannie Borum, and I am part of the corporate team here at Signworld, and I'll be moderating our session today. We appreciate you joining in. Just for those of you who have not participated or watched one of these recorded sessions in the past, just a really quick overview of what to expect for our time together today. First off, we're going to have each of our current owners that have joined as panelists give a background and introduction about themselves and their business and some key highlights to share about them. Once they're done with their introductions, we'll be turning the floor over to our guests who are joining us as prospective owners. So you get an opportunity to ask whatever questions you would like of the panelists for them to answer. I will ask you to come off mute by name, and we'll just ask you to ask one question at a time. Based on how many participants are joined in for the session, time may permit for a second or even third question. But for each opportunity you have, we just ask you to limit it to one to begin with. So with that said, let's go ahead and introduce our owners for our session today. I always like to go ladies first, so we'll start with Megan.
Having me. I'm Megan Greathouse. My husband and I co-own Horizon Sign Company. We are located in St. Louis, Missouri, and for anyone who's familiar with it, it's not a huge metro area, but we're in Brentwood in a Hanley Industrial Park, which is nice and centrally located for getting all over the metro area. Our facility, we actually just moved to, we're in our third year of business. We just moved to a 5,000 square foot facility. So we started in 2,900 square feet. We just made the move this summer to 5,000 square feet, right around the corner from our first space. We currently have 3 employees. We're about to hire a 4th and then hopefully a 5th as well shortly after that to be kind of at full strength. We have been up to 5 employees in the past and had a little turnover over the summer. 2023 sales projections, we were aiming to hit 1 million this year. Between the move and some of the turnover, I think we'll end up somewhere more between 850 and 900 by the end of this year, 2023. Our biggest customer project recently completed, we had a $75,000 project for a local university where we did a whole bunch of custom panels for an entire legacy wall for the men and women's soccer team at St. Louis University. So that's been our biggest project to date. That was in fall of last year, and we followed up with, I think, $35,000 worth of follow-on signage and set up for them around that same facility this year. And background, before the sign company, my husband and I started out after undergrad in the Marine Corps. Both used our lovely GI Bill benefits after that to get our MBAs and went into the corporate world after that. I was in a marketing brand management role in my corporate career, and my husband was in more of an operational logistics supply chain type of role.
Very good. Thank you so much, Megan, and congratulations on a great year so far.
Thank you.
Let's go to our next owner, Michael Leonard from Charlotte, North Carolina. Please introduce yourself.
Hey, good afternoon. Michael Leonard, Charlotte, North Carolina. We are located in Southwest Charlotte, the Steel Creek area. As I sit here looking at my largest customer, trying to figure out what they've done. 4 years ago this month, I was in training. Opened our doors November of 2019, had the grand opening in January 2020, 6 weeks before the pandemic. Our largest customer year to date so far is the city of Charlotte. Just looked up at $425,000 year to date, and I've got 100,000 in open invoices and 100,000 in works for them. We ended up with a large contract for the Charlotte area transit systems. So our facility is 3,600 square feet. That's what we opened with. We are crammed as possibly we can be and trying not to move, but may have to when our lease is up next year. I have 8 full-time employees, 2 part-time employees. Sales projection for 2023, budgeted at $1.6 million. I think we'll get closer to $1.8 million. Background career, I, like so many Signworld people, I am a corporate refugee. 24 years in retail, buying and then product development, international sourcing. That's us.
Very good. Thank you, Michael. And Michael's one of our famous Signworld owners. He was on the flight that landed on the Hudson River. So he's got a great story there for everyone too. But we'll save it for another
throw in one more note.
Yeah.
We will be doing, I've already gotten commitment on the new sign for the Sullenberger Aviation Museum.
Very
And
good.
I've got a 6-figure budget for additional signs for that museum when it opens in late 2024.
Fantastic. Glad to hear you're taking your experience and turning it into some profit. So that's fantastic. All right, very good. Let's go to our third owner on our panel today. Bob, please give an introduction for yourself and Stephanie and your business.
Okay, great. Bob McEwen, my wife Stephanie and I own Signcraft Solutions. We're just outside of the Raleigh area in Wake Forest, North Carolina. We have been in business for just a little over 14 years now. And we started in 2,500 square feet. We're now in 10,000 square feet of space. We've got 18 employees, not counting us. Our projection for the year, our goal was 2.1 million. We're at 1.66 right now. We've got 650,000 in WIP. So I think we're looking more like about 2.3. Our biggest customer for years has been a hospital system, UNC Rex healthcare system, and it continues to be. But we're our next closest customer, not too far behind that. Our customers are property management companies. Coming out of school, I spent 4 years in the Navy as an officer, and then 22 years in the corporate world, 12 years with Texas Instruments, and 10 with GE as a quality engineer for 15 years, and then 7 years as a product manager.
Very good. Thanks for joining us today, Bob. We appreciate it. Congrats on a great year as well. That's fantastic to hear. Jack, to you next.
I'm Jack Werner. I joined Signworld in 1995 as a Signworld operation. 1,100 square feet, one employee, ended up 10 years later in 5,000 square feet, staff of 11, doing about 1.3 in sales. My largest customer was a regional guy for Subway, $250,000 per year with one Subway contact, about 200 locations. I then sold that operation, joined Ken Kin, our founder and former president, at the corporate office to learn his end of the business, finished buying him out in 2014. I'm now the president of Signworld. So when I answer questions today, if it goes to experience running, I'll speak from that perspective. If it goes more for training and policy, I'll speak from that perspective. Prior to the Signworld, I ran a wholesale food distribution company. Nobody joining Signworld had sign experience before. We're looking for the customer or the corporate experience, the interaction with clients, the multitasking, the project management, working on the business, not working in the business.
Very good. Thank you for that introduction, Jack. All right, now the fun part starts. We're going to turn it over to our guests who have joined us today to ask their questions. So I'm going to call you off by name. Again, if you could take yourself off mute when I do so, tell the group where you're from, physically where you're located, and give a question for the panelists to answer. So today we're going to start with John Martin. Please take yourself off of mute and go ahead with the question for the group.
I wish I had one. Can you pass on me for a moment and think about it? I'm just absorbing what you've got here.
You bet. You bet. We'll come back to you momentarily. Let's
Great,
go to our
thank
next. You bet, John. Mark Porter, please take yourself off of mute and go ahead with the question for the group.
Well, I appreciate the time and the invite to jump on. I'm first of all, Megan and Bob, I think you both said that you were in the military, so thank you for your service. Like you, I was also in the Navy back in the day, but spent 25 years in the food manufacturing industry as an executive. Worked in a number of brand name companies. My question is, you know, you talk about your largest projects and your largest customers. What can you tell me about your bread and butter, you know, repeat, steady, you know, maybe smaller tickets, but very consistent customers and projects? What do those look like?
All right, great question. Where do you find the keys to your success with projects? Megan, let's start with you first. What would you say is your bread and butter?
Bob maybe mentioned this as well, but we work with several real estate development companies or property management companies There are architecture firms that continue to send us projects, and then plenty of small business and retail signage as well. So our average order is about $3,500 when you average everything out. So we really do range from smaller projects to kind of the more mid-size exterior signage, channel letters or dimensional letters, and then all the way up to those, handful of the really big projects. But I think it's common to have an average order size, at least in a lot of the folks who are in my mastermind group, in the low thousands, and it's creeping up steadily each year as we bring on more repeat customers with bigger needs over time.
Very good. Thank you. Bob, how about you?
Our biggest, probably our biggest jobs that we do are ADA signage. So we've got a couple of laser engravers. We do a lot of ADA type of signs. We do a lot of routed signs. Those tend to be our biggest thing. So we're doing a lot of in the hospitals, in the offices. We're outfitting a lot of offices with directional signs, ADA signs, room signs, directional signs, those types of things. But we do everything. Our average order size in WIP right now is about $5,700 per invoice.
Okay, very good. How about you, Michael?
So my largest bread and butter day and day actually is transit wraps and fleet graphics. We've got a couple of larger customers. We've rebranded for one customer over 200 vehicles. We work as a subcontractor for a larger national graphics company. I think we've done 15 2U laundry vans this year and other things. We also do quite a few channel letter signs. And we've gotten our first couple national accounts for regional growing chains that have 8, 10, 15 different locations and are expanding. There's a company called iCryo. There's a couple others we've gone after. And so we do quite a bit of exterior signs. We actually, excited to know, yesterday our van ladder showed up. Our brand new $135,000 installation vehicle. And I was on site this morning to see my guys in action doing that. So we do quite a bit of exterior signage as well as fleet type graphics.
Very good. I'm sure there's lots of Signworld owners that are envious of your van ladder. That's quite the piece of equipment. So that's fantastic. Jack, how about your thoughts?
It's an interesting question. In the beginning, you're taking on anybody that has money to pay for the sign, but then you're going to figure out which customers you like better, which projects you like better, and let the niche develop. Your sign makers good on vehicle wraps, you probably go after more of them. If they're not so good on it, you go after other stuff. You'll probably 25% of your business in the beginning is probably wraps by default. There's that much out there. You'll either like it and go after more of it, accept it and go after other stuff and let that stay there, or say, I don't want to do wraps. Over time, I'd say commercial property management is probably the biggest category most Signworlds will do. Got a lot of people going into multifamily housing. We had a huge webinar on that yesterday because the projects are big and consistent and repetitive. There's so many niches to this business that every single Signworld will tell you they've got a different mix of who is our customer base.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good. Thank you, Jack. All right, let's go to our next guest. John, I see you raised your hand momentarily ago, so I'm assuming you have a question ready now.
I do. I actually have 3. Can you tell me what the last question was so I don't repeat it?
Last question was, what's your bread and butter? Like, what types of projects are you finding yourself doing most consistently that are bringing in good revenue?
Great. Well, I have several, but I'll just start with the first one. Not running the business, but getting the business started. What are the 2 or 3 hardest things that you come up against or challenges that you face when you're building the business and getting started?
Yeah, great question. We're going to start with Bob first. He's our oldest owner. So going back in time, Bob, what were your first, 2 or 3 biggest challenges you worked through?
Your biggest challenge is just building your customer base. So starting off to bring in those original customers and start growing your business. But also, I think learning how to do pricing. For me, that was a challenge, just getting comfortable with how to price and what, making sure that you're not underpricing things so that you think you need to price too low and just to bring the business in the door, but you don't want to do that.
So pricing and finding customers.
Yep.
All right, very good. Michael, how about you?
Can you repeat the question again? Make sure I'm answering this right.
What were your biggest challenges when you were first starting your business?
Okay, so ours was COVID. The phone stopped ringing 6 weeks after we opened their doors. I did $4,200 business in my third month of being open, which doesn't even cover the rent basically. So at one point, I will say I was going door to door to restaurants trying to sell $99 banners to say, yes, we're open during COVID. So getting that customer base, for us, it was really building the web presence and playing bigger than we were. We ended up landing in month 3 a job that eventually became a $20,000 customer because we played bigger than we were. My personal biggest one was I don't know a dang thing about signs when I opened this company. I've been in manufacturing, but not signs. I'd never actually made anything. So struggling to understand it, understand the different processes, understand permitting if you're doing exterior stuff, understanding different fabrication methods, understanding that every job is custom and every job is different, and you can't just put a blanket statement on something. So I think that was my biggest struggle, was just getting myself an education, which took time.
Very good. And Michael, although you had challenges in those first couple months, what was your first year sales? If I remember, you had a pretty solid...
238,000.
That's still pretty good in times of COVID. What was your second year?
Second year was almost 600, 597.
And you're close to 2 million today. So you definitely have done great. So congratulations. All right, let's go to Megan last. What would you say is your biggest challenges that you guys faced in the beginning?
I will reiterate Michael's point that it's a steep learning curve at first, you know. Fortunately, Signworld provides a lot of training and support and a network of people around you who are in the industry, but you have a lot to learn day one because, as Jack said, we're not coming from signage backgrounds. But I also think that ends up being a strength down the road once you have your feet under you, because you're running the sign company like a business, not like the thing that you're good at doing with your own hands. And so you tried to start the company. But that said, I think beyond that, the struggle really depends on the person and the personality. So, you know, I felt like customer acquisition was a little bit easier. I came from a marketing background. I'm already kind of heavily involved in my local community and networking efforts, and those are my favorite parts of this. So finding the work wasn't necessarily the hardest part. I think finding the right team and getting the right processes in place to efficiently move through that work so we can really build the sales, because finding a person who wants a sign and actually being able to provide everything they need in a timely manner with good people and having everything turn out high quality, there's a whole lot of steps involved in that. That's not as much my strength. So I think, fortunately, my husband is a little bit better at that side of things, but I think it really is personality based, which part is going to be the toughest for you, but everyone has the learning curve up front for the sign industry.
Thank you, Megan. Jack?
You know, I think they've answered it all in different ways and all correct. It's first figuring out what is a sign and what can I make. It's figuring out what is the right customer and figuring out how to price the project. But it also goes to your strengths and weaknesses. Nobody joining Signworld has all the talents. That's why you join an organization. So if you have a net customer interface, it's learning how to meet with customers. If you haven't hired and managed people, it's sad. If you don't understand QuickBooks as a small business person, it's sad. So there's a curve that you have to go through to get to the other side.
Very good. Thank you, Jack. All right, let's go to our next guest for a question. Eric, I believe that's you. Go ahead and take yourself off of mute and tell the group where you're from and go ahead with the question.
Yeah, it's Eric Barchfeld. I'm in the Fort Lauderdale, Miami area. And I've been in, corporate operations management since college. But recently exited that. So trying to figure out what I want to do next. So I guess I had a couple of my questions already answered. But I guess along the same lines, I would maybe try and ask, what was maybe the biggest surprise that sort of caught you by surprise and you're starting out in the business?
Great question. Megan, how about you? What was the biggest surprise?
Logically, it's not a surprise that when you're starting a new company, there's going to be a lot of hats that you wear. But when that work actually hits and you're trying to manage all the different pieces of building a business from the ground up. There's a little bit of shock on your heels kind of feeling. So certainly you have to get used to eating the elephant one bite at a time is my favorite phrase. We use it all the time in our business and in our house. Because there's, you're wearing many hats, but I think that, again, having a mastermind that you're working with, having Signworld to provide training, all of that helps. And then hopefully that allows you to build sales at such a rate that you can start bringing in more people to help. And we've really focused on trying to hire a little bit before we need the next person so that we do have the capacity to keep growing.
Very good. Bob, what would you say is your biggest surprise?
Would have to kind of agree with Megan. Just working in the corporate world, you may wear one or two hats. Coming into a business like this, you wear all of them, and so you're, especially starting off, you're learning a lot. You're learning the materials. You're learning how to do things. You're juggling a lot of different things and projects all at once. Learning how to do the quotes, meet the customers, do the networking. Get your systems up and going, learning, hiring, getting to know your employees. It's just all those different things that you're trying to do all at once. So that's what I'd say.
Okay. Michael?
Year one, I didn't actually pay the state of North Carolina sales tax until I got a $9,000 bill.
Ooh,
I didn't understand taxes, and I
kind
still
of good surprise.
don't. Yeah, I thought QuickBooks was just taking it out magically. No, it doesn't. So there are things I did not understand. I still today struggle with different county and city permitting. I was on a call with another Signworld owner about engineering. I'm not an engineer. I'm not even sure what I need to do for a big project I currently have. So I'm referring to other Signworld owners for help. I think it was a combination of not understanding the rules, regulations, how it works of setting up a company and all those fun things. And I came from retail where we had like set pricing. You had set margins, you had set goals, you had set everything. Today, the dynamic pricing that we do, small business comes in, we work a lot tighter because we want to help them. Big company comes in, we're going to jack that price because they want good service. We'll give it to them and we're going to make them pay for it. So I will charge certain customers significantly more than others, depending on who they are and what we know about them. And that really surprised me of just the diversity of pricing within what we do. Is really surprising.
Very good. So before I turn it to Jack, I'm going to flip it around because some of you talked about some of the, I wouldn't say the negative surprises, but things that were harder than you thought. What were some of the good surprises that you may have found in your business? Any of you have a good surprise that you just found to be easier than you expected it to be? Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, our first week, I thought I was going to just spend some time getting to know my first employee, and doing some signs for our showroom. And he had a customer that he had from a previous sign company that called him and said, "I've got a vehicle that I want to do." And so our first week, we did a vehicle wrap. So that was a surprise. That it was a good surprise that right off the bat we were starting to roll.
Yeah, it's great in your first week. How about you, Megan?
I think this is why it's one of my favorite parts of owning a business, but the networking aspect and the strength of creating a good network. I've met really interesting, incredible people in the kind of commercial real estate area of St. Louis, as well as just fellow entrepreneurs and business owners. And it's never a direct path. You meet them, then there's an order, but it's amazing how many opportunities come through those through those interactions. And we also hired people with a lot of experience. So we had a similar situation to Bob, where in our second month, we hired our second person. He came with 30 years of industry experience and a ton of connections throughout the area. And probably about 6 months after we hired him, he brought us a project that was big enough to pay for us bringing on a laser, which is an additional piece of equipment. We weren't expecting to have that quickly, but it was really cool to see new business from a great employee bring in an extra piece of equipment that really has shaped a lot of what we do. We do a lot of exterior signage and lobby signage with dimensional letters because of that laser.
Very good. Thank you. Michael?
I think my biggest surprise is up until I did this, I had zero interest in ever owning my own business. This is the last thing in the world I wanted to do. Today, I don't regret it at all. A lot of hills and valleys. I've cried more times than I thought I would, and I've been elated and done some. Anyways, I'm surprised that I actually this works. That honestly, because I was scared out of my mind and I had no interest in doing it. I'd worked for small businesses and it was terrible. A surprise was Monday, my install manager, who was very good, left for more money somewhere else. After a year, he came back because he said the grass isn't always greener. Can I come work for you again? And that's one of my pleasant surprises. I've built a pretty good team. It took a while, but I've got a good team where I can actually go. I was in the last 2 years, I've been to Hawaii, Alaska, Madrid. I was just in Vegas, San Diego, Minneapolis, all on vacations. I built a team that can make it happen. And that's kind of it wasn't easy at first, but it's a very pleasant surprise that I took 4 vacations this summer.
That's awesome. I'm envious. Fantastic. Good for you. Jack, what would you say?
Before you went to them for the positive side, that's where I was going to go. To me, it was how rewarding it was to do things my way instead of having to do things the way the boss wanted me to do it. It was in seeing how happy customers were when we delivered a product to them and how good their name looked in lights and how they smile. It's a happy business. It's still driving around and saying, hey, I remember making that. That's mine. The reward factor. And then it's a variety of every day being different. You're not doing the same thing every day. It's so uniquely challenging. It's a unique business.
Yeah, you definitely called out a couple of comments that I've heard owners say, they weren't expecting to be seen or feeling that way about the business, but over time they realized that all to be true. So thanks for sharing.
Right.
All right.
Jeannie, can I just add to that? Over the years, there's a lot of customers that we've developed that have become friends. They're not just customers now. They're good friends. And so that's been a neat thing to just look back and see how many of those customers now really got good relationships with.
Yeah, I think that's a key to this business is building those relationships. Like Megan said, too, it's amazing how many people you can touch when they're touching other people and they're touching other people and you've got a good reputation and things just kind of fall into place with just doing the right things and running your business the right way. So that's fantastic. All right, let's go around for a second opportunity. So I will ask Mark first, since he was our first to offer a question. Mark, do you have a second question for the group today?
And this is probably going to sound, like a guy coming from manufacturing, which is what I've done, but equipment utilization. And I guess thinking about, is it initially, and then what, at what revenue level do you, find yourself needing to add a second printer, plotter, cutter, CNC, whatever? Has that happened to any of you, or is it you're just not really tapping the equipment utilization at a high percentage yet?
All right, very good. Let's start with we'll start with Megan first. Megan, you've talked about your laser and why you brought that on, but maybe you can just expand if you brought in on any other equipment, and if so, why?
We have not yet, in part because of other priorities. We were bringing on the laser pretty quickly and then moving to a larger location. And the other reason is because there are so many vendors that you can go to if you need that lever to help you fulfill orders. Even though we can print banners all day long in our office, we often will go to some of the suppliers and vendors that Signworld recommends to get some of those things handled, to allow us to focus on other things that we're already doing in-house. I think there's some versatility and flexibility with the fact that you can do whatever mix you want of in-house and outsourced, and kind of turn those things on and off as needed. So we have not gone on to further equipment purchases since that laser. And we fully expect that there will be a time, and we're setting aside profit for that. But so far, we've been good with our initial package plus the laser.
So Megan, what would be that next piece if you were ready to pull this trigger on something? Do you know yet?
Honestly, I think probably there's a few things we've talked about, several things we've talked about, but there's a good chance that we bring in a second laser, probably a different laser with some slightly differing capabilities. That laser came in because we had an awesome opportunity to subcontract for a fixtures company that outfits retailers across the country. So they bring us pretty good size, you know, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 projects at a time. And we know there are follow-on projects coming that, depending on the timeline in which they hit, could be, you know, $500,000, $700,000 projects pretty rapidly. And that would be something that we'd be happy to bring another laser in for sure. They send us all the materials, so it's pretty much machine time and labor for us, and that would be well worth the investment. And we know we would put it to use with our other clients as well.
Very good. Thank you for sharing. Michael, almost 4 years in, have you bought in any extra equipment? If so, yes, when and why?
So a year ago today, inside my shop, I had the starter package.
What level of sales were you at that point still?
We had done about 600 in year 2. We were on pace to do $1 million in year 3.
Okay.
But then October after that, we bought a second HP printer when we got a contract with the city. Since then, we added a flatbed printer and a router. That's all this year. And then pulled the trigger based on profitability. Could have paid cash for that van ladder, but borrowed 50% to establish credit, because unfortunately I don't like debt and I paid cash for everything until now. And we have no credit as a company. So I had to get a nasty loan on a car just to try to build the credit for the company as we move forward. But so right now we've maxed out our space, but we've got basically two large format printers, a flatbed printer, and a router as well.
Okay, so close to $1 million in sales with the starter package, but significant investments since then. Very good. Yeah. Lab, how about you?
Well, our philosophy has always been buy equipment as the market needs it. So as our customer base has grown to the point where they're asking us for certain things, and we have been outsourcing too much, then we start adding new equipment. So as we got into about year 4, year 5, we added a gravograph, which is it's a rotary engraver. It had some capabilities to do some routing as well. But then we added a paint booth. We've added 2 laser engravers. We've added the CNC router. We've added another printer. We've got another laminator. We've added a bucket truck and forklift and flatbed trailer, and so quite a few things. But
What haven't you added? What's still out there for you to acquire?
Well, what everybody wants is a flatbed printer, and we don't have that yet. So that would probably be our next.
Very good. Megan, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to add, Michael made me think about this. While we haven't added anything besides the laser yet, we do have 2 trucks, just regular, pickup trucks that we bought for the company. It allows you can always pay your people mileage for using their own vehicles, but it's nice to have company vehicles that they can use, especially because you can add wraps to those vehicles and branding. I think it's another good source of marketing for you. And just the frequency with which people I know are like, oh, I saw a Horizon truck driving around in this part of town today. I think it adds to your credibility when there are branded vehicles running all over town, putting signs up, and that business owner next door comes over and asks for a card when they see you out there, versus some guy in his whatever personal vehicle showing up to do something.
Very good. Thanks for that ad, Megan. Jack, your thoughts?
Before I answer, I'm going to introduce a couple of slideshows that go on in the background. There's no audio to them. They'll just play in the background that we can visually see a little bit more what we're talking about. The first one goes to showing you some locations inside and out, and so you can see how they're similar but yet different. Second one goes to what is a sign in 3 parts. The first part, what you can make in-house with the original equipment. The second part of it showing what you need to outsource until you bring in some of the extra equipment. And the third part of that second one is just showing you some unusual applications, things you wouldn't think of as a sign. The third slideshow goes to our wall of fame, showing you some of the bigger projects Signworld have accomplished. The original package is enough to do all the two-dimensional signage, or virtually everything two-dimensional, a few exceptions here and there. And we have operations over $1 million in revenue still running just for original equipment, and some that never buy more equipment. There's others that say, if I can't make it in the back room, I don't want to sell it. And so they've brought in more equipment so they can control the process over time. So a decision to make for later to determine how you want your business to develop.
Very good. Thank you, Jack. We'll look forward to watching that slideshow in the background. As he said, it'll be muted, so we'll continue through with questions. Let's go to our next participant, John Martin. If you have a second question, I think you said you had 3, so go ahead and take yourself mute and give us a second one.
If I can ask 2, there'll be short answers, hopefully. One would be, is the business cyclical? Meaning, does the sales go up and down as the economy goes up and down? And second question is, are you guys happy running your businesses?
Okay, very good. Michael, let's start with you first. Is the business cyclical? And I'll also add seasonal, because I think that's a common question that's asked. So if you can add that to it. And are you happy you made your decision?
So we've just seen growth for over 1.5 years. I had the privilege of basically turning business away. We had done such a phenomenal job with our web company and reputation and things out there and references that we literally were turning away 1 in 3 calls that came in. So we've just seen growth. We could have done, we're basically $2.5 million this year, and I didn't want to work 70-hour weeks. I want to take vacations. So I'm good at $1.8 million. Am I happy today? Absolutely. Did I question it year 1, year 2? Absolutely. It was harder than I thought it'd be, and it was hard. Is it worth it in the end? Absolutely. Nothing, everything good in life has a price. And I definitely, I plan by 2028 to semi-retire. I will have a $2 to $2.5 million company, and I'll work 20 hours a week and make more than I made in the corporate world ever. So yes, it's working. It's there. I also love the fact that we are dead holiday weeks. 4th of July week, phone doesn't ring. Christmas week, phone doesn't ring. You might as well shut down. It's wonderful to actually be able to spend that time with families. I was in retail again. I used to work 14-hour days around Christmas. So it's kind of phenomenal to have those days, especially Christmas to New Year's. Nothing happens. It's great.
Very good. Thank you, Michael. Bob?
As far as being cyclical, we're pretty consistent. It's we've had a little bit of a slow time at the beginning of the year, just as people are ramping up with their new budgets, corporations are. But overall, it stays pretty busy throughout the year. I think when we first started, we may have seen some slowdowns at the beginning of the year and kind of towards the end of the summer when corporate people are going on vacations or getting ready for school to start back up with the kids. But now we're pretty consistent. As far as being happy, yes, we're happy we've done this. It's been great being in the corporate world. It seemed like every 2 or 3 years they were moving me into different positions or different locations. And so I kind of had that feeling that I needed to move on every 2 or 3 years to something else. But we've been doing this for over 14 years now, and it doesn't feel like it. Not looking for something else.
Yeah, and Bob, if I can add, because what year did you join? Was it 2008?
2009.
2009. So you joined right when we were kind of in the last recession, and obviously, there's concerns about a recession looming. Have you seen those impact your business and as well as COVID? Because you were, fully operational before and during and after COVID. Tell us a little bit about that part of it.
We were actually very busy through COVID, and it wasn't because of COVID signage. This area continued to have a lot of construction, and our property managers continued to do buildings and adding new spaces. And so we stayed busy, did really well during COVID.
Very good. Thank you. Megan?
We are in our 3rd year. We haven't really been through a major market cycle, but we were starting up in late 2020 was when we were getting things in motion. So we had the opportunity to kind of watch what was happening around us during the height of COVID before we really pulled the trigger, and felt that this industry was probably a little more hardy against market cycles. But again, have not experienced anything major ourselves just yet. In terms of seasonality, we do find that during the Christmas holiday, end of year holiday and beginning of the new year, it's a little bit slower, which again is nice for family needs in the holidays. I think, everyone else is just busy with family stuff as well. And then they're finalizing budgets, like Bob said. And then in the summer, there'll be some months that are really busy. And then usually, like this year, July was a little quieter because I think people were actually out there traveling. And then August was insane because everyone was coming back, getting settled back in before the school year started, and it all went crazy. And it's been really busy this month as well. So, there are peaks and valleys throughout the year, but we're finding that, you can, if you look at things by quarter, I think it's a much better pace for yourself than trying to look by month, because that'll be a little more spiky. And then, yes, we're happy. I think my husband and I were really excited about this as a challenge as well as a lifestyle situation. We're working the corporate jobs, which involve travel sometimes and longer hours sometimes, and we now have an office. I'm at home at the moment just for quiet, but we have an office that's 7 minutes away from our house, which means it's also 7 minutes away from our kids' school, and we have 100% control over where our office is in relation to our home. We went to Portugal for a week last December for a family trip. We went to Florida over the summer, this summer. I'll be going to South Africa with my sister next month, so I'm able to fit travel in. My husband and I also flex as we need to, for just personal needs, time away for quiet, hobbies. Last Friday, my husband took the day off to go hunting because it was the opening of archery season. So I think we both feel like, even though it can be busy, even though those first 2 years are chaotic, you get to the point where you realize you're in more control than you've ever had in your life before. And that's really satisfying.
I love that. And to add, Megan and David joined the business when they had children who were 1 and 4, if I recall correctly. So
yes, yeah, that part, sometimes I look back and I'm like, wait, what were we doing? But it's worked out.
very good. Thank you, Megan. Jack, any comments to that?
It's interesting when we talk to the whole population that one might be a little bit slow this month, another one's busy. There's no real trend that you can find. As Megan said, either from end of school, start of school, there's a distraction, the holiday distraction, but you're again building a pipeline of projects. Bob said that he had 600,000 work in progress. So if there's a slow season, you're catching up on the backlog. You're hopefully never ever running out of work. So the staff is busy every hour of every day. If you've done it right, planned it right. Best decision I ever made in life. I was on Little League field at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 days a week, managing my boys' teams. Customers and employees just saw it as I was seeing other customers. I was just ahead of enough that you can have a life around it. So it's an interesting business to have.
Very good. Thank you, Jack. All right, let's go to Eric. Eric, if you could take us off of mute and go ahead with the second question for the group today.
Yeah, I guess I'd want to, dive back into that first year or two of, if you can give a little bit of idea how much business you were actually producing in-house versus subcontracting as you were, getting through that first year as you were acquiring customers. And, I guess along with that, when you went through training, were you ready to go and produce signs as soon as you got back with your package, or did it take some time until you hired somebody that knew what they were doing? Thanks.
Very good. Thank you. Let's start with you first, Michael. What % of your business in your first year was in-house produced versus outsourced? And how equipped did you feel coming out of training to start the business and know what you were doing?
I couldn't give you a real number. I can guess probably 60-40, 60% done in-house, 40 out. That's also because I have this equipment, I want to use it, so let me go after those customers. One of our very first jobs was doing an entire bounce house playland place with over 4,000 square feet of vinyl on the walls. And that was something we were masking large panels, which is something you don't do. We were making all kinds of wonderful mistakes because I thought I did. But I came out being able to use the printer, do some basic things. Again, it's not my forte. And I hired, right now, I think I've got 140 years of sign experience on my staff. So I relied on the experts and bringing in people. I discovered very quickly, let me get people who know what they're doing. pay them properly, and go that way. So I guess it's 60-40. Today, we're probably about 60-40 as well. We do a lot of vinyl work, other things, and we're bringing equipment. It was funny because many owners said to me, you don't bring in equipment to make more money. You're bringing in to have control of what you're doing. And that's the number one reason. If I want to get something done for a customer, I've got total control over it. I know when we can deliver. I know we can push. I know what we can do because we control it. And that's why I'm trying to bring more and more manufacturing in-house, if that makes sense. And the back half of the question was?
Good question. I forgot the back half of the question now.
I think it was the percentage, and then just, did you feel comfortable, making stuff, making mistakes yourself until you got somebody in there? It was better to get somebody in there, like you said, and handle it with the expertise.
I had someone here the day before we opened our doors. I had someone in here. Today I play like I'm a sign expert. And I play it very well, but I still go back to my team and ask them. My head of installs 56, the guy that came back, and he's phenomenal. I've got my production manager. I helped move here from 400 miles away because I wanted a solid production manager. Finding quality people is the number one thing, and managing them and keeping them and retaining them and everything you need to do. But that's what's made my business hum, is finding the right people.
Very good. Bob, going back to the beginning, what would you estimate was your in-house versus outsourced production in the first year? And tell us a little bit about your training and your employee side and how you attack business from the beginning.
Sure. I think probably we outsourced 60 to 70% of our business early on, but I thought our package was good. We just had that type of customer base. Now we probably do we outsource maybe 20% of what we do. We're not UL certified, so we don't do any lighted signs in-house, but other than that, we manufacture just about everything else. As far as employees, my first hire had 11 years of experience in the sign industry, both with design, installation, production. He's still with us. And he is our operations director now. So we've been able to hire good people, and they've been able to help us along. To like the other said, they're the experts, and you rely on them, and they help out a lot. It keeps you going.
Very good, thank you, Megan. How about you?
This year we were probably 40, maybe even close to 50% outsourced at first. And I think that was, changing over the course of those first 12 months pretty rapidly. But we are now at probably about 30% outsourced, 70% in-house. And the reason it's at 30% is because we do a good number of channel letters. And like Bob said, we don't do lighted signage in-house. So 30% outsourced at this point. And that's in terms of dollar volume. We brought someone in from day one. So we never intended to, I think we were well prepared to at least know what we were talking about with signage and with the different equipment, but we brought someone in from day one to actually run all the equipment and make the signs. David and I have done very little sign making or installation. I've done almost none. David is the one who, if we really are in a pinch, he'll run out and help with something. But our goal was always to start a company that we could manage and work on, not in. And of course, in the first few years, you're working in it in many ways, but we've tried very hard not to touch the signage or the installation as much as possible.
Very good. Thank you. Jack, your thoughts?
For myself, and I think for most Signworld owners, about a 75 in-house and 25 sub in the beginning. As you go after bigger customers, you probably end up at a 50-50. I then brought in more equipment. I ended up in about an 80-20 mix in-house to sub. There are some very content having others make it, and some I want to have control of it, not necessarily to make more money, as Michael said, but have control of the product, the timeline. I've done interviews in the last few weeks, 2 in Port St. Lucie, Florida, 2 in Tampa, 2 in Corpus Christi, 2 in Santa Rosa, California, all of them 10 to 15 years experience. So we'll help you find that journeyman sign maker to run the equipment, to make the signs, and for you to be there to do it. But through training and help having you make signs, to decorate a showroom, you're gonna have the working knowledge that you have a conversation with a customer about what can be done, and then you have the expert behind you to actually do it.
Very good. Thank you, Jack. All right, we've got time for maybe one more question for attendees. If anyone want to raise your hand or go off mute, I'll watch who might do that first if you have another question for the group today. Don't see one yet. So I'll go ahead and ask a question that's always asked on almost every webinar, and I'm surprised it hasn't yet here today. So let's ask it. When you first considered this industry, there's lots of sign companies out there. Did that concern you? And what do you think about your competition today? Let's start with you, Bob.
Yes, when we started, I looked up the phone book when we had phone books, and there were a lot of sign companies in the area. What I found out was a lot of those were either people working out of their garages or just small companies, and there really wasn't that much competition. So I thought there was going to be more, but when you drive around, you see how many signs there are all over the place. There's room for you to do well. And if you answer the phone and do what you say you're going to do, you're already ahead of most of them.
Okay, very good. How about you, Michael? What do you think about the competition before and now?
Just as Bob said, I took one of Jack's tests and I called 10 sign stores after hours, left my home number because no one answers or even really has a home number anymore. 2 called me back. 8 didn't bother to call me back. Most of our competition is terrible. If you, as Bob says, do what you say what you do, you're a person of your word, you're good. I joke, we're a step below construction, and you know how much everyone loves those construction remodel people, how good they are. A lot of sign companies, your competition is non-existent. I'm still amazed at how bad some of the stuff I see out there is. So just do quality work, do what you say, follow up, you're golden. I don't consider any sign company my competition.
Very good. Thank you, Michael. Megan, your thoughts?
So I did the same homework assignment. I called 10 sign companies in St. Louis after hours and got the same exact result. 2 called me back, except only 1 called back the next day. The other one called back 2 or 3 weeks later, and turned out to be, like Bob said, one of those types who was doing signage pretty much on his own, maybe had one other person he was working with, because he had been a sign maker at some point. So he didn't have the business acumen side of the situation. So I do think that you can really set yourself apart pretty quickly by just running things like a business, and actually getting back to people. And I mean, we even find it hard sometimes, and that's what we're constantly fighting to not become, because it does get busy. There might be several sign companies in your area, but I guarantee there are a whole lot more other types of businesses, construction companies, architecture firms, buildings that need signage than there are sign companies. And that signage doesn't go up and stay up forever either. It's rotating over the years. So yeah, we have competition in the area, but we don't interact with them all that much. Every once in a while, we're in a bidding situation. Lots of times we're the one sign company that actually provides the bid. And we lose jobs occasionally to other companies, but it's not been enough to slow us down.
Right. Very good. Jack, any thoughts from you?
You know, I had 26 within a mile of my location, 300 in the county. I looked at it as opportunity. If there's that many out there, there's got to be a lot of business. Most sign companies are run by sign makers, not by business people. And so showing up for the appointment, delivering the code, delivering the product, puts you a world ahead. And in the beginning, you can only handle so many projects anyway. So you're not looking for hundreds of customers. It's a crowded market. It's not a saturated market.
Very good. Thank you, Jack. I just noticed we had a participant join late. I'm not sure if he had the time zone mistake, but Ken Galvin, you just joined. I don't know if you want to go ahead with the question for the group as our last question today. If you can take yourself off of mute, we'll give you an opportunity to do so.
Sorry, not knowing what's been discussed. I really don't have a question at this point.
Okay. All right. No worries at all. I just wanted to give you the opportunity if you did. We will have this recording available for you, Ken, so you can listen to everything that's been asked and answered from this group of participants, just like we have many other webinars on our YouTube channel of other owners and other sessions recorded too. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and close up our session for today. So first and foremost, Michael, Bob, and Megan, thank you so very much for taking time out of your obviously very busy days. Congratulations on your great success here in 2023. Hope your year ends at the targets and beyond that you've set for yourself. But heartfelt thank you for taking the time out. To our participants who joined, we appreciate your interest in learning more about Signworld, and we look forward to the additional conversations with you to help you uncover if this is the right choice for you in your future. So with that said, I hope everybody has a great rest of your day, and thanks again for joining our session. Have a great one. Take care.